But it was a little bit longer, more difficult experience than we had anticipated. But we were able to get a resolution passed by the Senate, and I was honored to sponsor that resolution that would bring back a statue of a very important man in Michigan's history from the Capitol. But we're still going to honor that person and that legacy. But we would place a statue of President Gerald R. Ford in the Capitol Rotunda. Right now, each state can have 2 statues in statutory hall collection, and we have 2. But we need to bring one back so we can put President Ford's statue in there. So we're going to bring back the statue of Zachariah Chandler, a wonderful man, lived about 100 years ago in Michigan's history, or maybe perhaps it's a little bit more, but helped to start the Republican Party, was mayor of Detroit, I think a senator, was a strong abolitionist, and we want to continue to honor his memory. We're going to place that statue in the Detroit Historical Museum, and then place a statue of President Ford in the Capitol Rotunda, which is only reserved for presidents. And you're spearheading that effort. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, let me take you back a little ways to it. And again, knowing President Ford the way I did, he would look at it not as a way to honor him, but maybe honor the state of Michigan and the country. He would never have allowed us to do it if we had not found a home for Zachariah Chandler. But as it turned out, it was a win-win situation. Zachariah Chandler's statue was not drawing a great deal of attention there. It will in Detroit.
That's right.
President Ford will obviously draw a lot of attention. But you know, that was his home. We call Grand Rapids his home, and that was his home. But he always referred to the Capitol as his second home. He spent 25 years there, which is longer than any individual in Congress that became president. So he has that historical part of it. His family thought of it as his second home. I love to hear his children talk about the fact that when he would go on the weekends to work in the Capitol building as a congressman, quite often he'd bring the children with him, and they had one thing that he wanted them to do. Every time they went in there, he wanted them to type a note to Betty Ford, their mother, how much they loved him. Then once they did that, then he kind of let them, which they couldn't do today, run loose in the Capitol. And of all things, play hide and seek in the statuary hall collection of all places. So there's quite a history, but I think it'll be so good for the state of Michigan and the country that his statue, as you mentioned, will be in the rotunda forever. And so through your efforts, we had to have legislative approval first, and I'm sure he would have enjoyed the fact that it also required across the aisle, because that's the way he always operated, as you know, as a congressman, that he operated on both sides. And then the governor had to sign off, and that letter now sits in Washington and the Congressional Committee, I'm told today, this week. Senator Feinstein, rather than have the whole committee vote on it, is just going to do it by memo because she knows everybody's going to vote in favor. So we're off and running now, thanks to the leadership you provided and others, and your chief of staff, Alan. They're just marvelous people to work with. We had our work cut out for us, and we respect everybody's opinions, but we had to work hard to do it, and it was, in the end, I think everybody knows it was the right thing to do.
Marty, I believe that as well, and even though we had to work our way through it, I think everyone understood and respected President Ford. Some wanted to be sure that Zachariah Chandler had an appropriate place to be as well, and now I fully believe that it is a win-win situation. There will be a whole new generation of young Michiganders that will understand the important role that Zachariah Chandler played in the abolitionist movement and forming the Republican Party and representing the people as a servant leader in Detroit and for Michigan, but also a whole new generation, even a generation yet unborn, will see the wonderful qualities of this man, Gerald R. Ford, as president. And Michigan is honored. I think the nation is honored. And I'm certainly honored to even have a small role in it. We appreciate Representative Sack and working with the Democratic side. We appreciate Governor Granholm for sending the letter in. So it was, you're right, people coming together from across the aisle. One story that was told as we discussed the issue on the Senate floor, President Ford, obviously before he was president, Jerry Ford was on the football team for the University of Michigan. There was an incident in which he had to deal with a racial issue. Can you just kind of recount that?
His teammate's name was Wade. He was the only African American on the team. They were preparing to play for Georgia Tech and had been advised by the officials there that Wade would not be allowed to play. President Ford took it upon himself. He was captain of the team to say, then we won't play if Wade can't play. But he convinced them that would be the wrong thing to do, to go out and play. But he goes back in so many ways. This incident carried him through the civil rights position that he took in Congress and lived by, just as the Boy Scouts founding, you talk about to tell the truth, all these principles started, but that started there, the Wade story, which I think is a remarkable story and one well told.
And as it turned out, the grandson of Wade is right there in the Michigan Senate, Senator Buzz Thomas from Detroit, and he stood up, someone from the other side of the aisle, from the other side of the state, and supported the resolution to place a statue of Gerald R. Ford in the Capitol Rotunda. I thought that was just coming full circle. It was beautiful.
It was amazing when I heard the story, and I thought to myself, he wouldn't have to ask what the fuss was all about after that happened. He would understand that there was some debate on the principle, but he was used to that. But to have this situation occur with the senator getting up was amazing.
So it was wonderful, and it was just a wonderful thing to be involved in, to see people, Republican, Democrat, black, white, House and Senate and governor's position standing up to support this resolution to place a statue of President Gerald R. Ford in the Capitol Rotunda.
And if it all goes well, as scheduled, you and I and many others will be in the Capitol sometime in spring of 2009 to see it unveiled, and that'll be quite a day.
I look forward to that day. I look forward to that day. Gentlemen, we're nearing the end of our conversation here, and I'm sure there are many other things we could talk about. But when you think about President Ford, you think about the Boy Scouts and what it stands for. And again, I am urging more and more parents, more and more community members to get involved with scouting so that we can teach our young men these very important values. Thank you very much for joining me, gentlemen. This is Bill Hardiman. It's been a joy sitting here talking with you and talking about a great man, but also a great organization, and talking about things that I think we can all work to live up to in our lives and be a blessing to this community. This is Bill Hardiman. Thank you very much for joining us today from Capitol to Community. Thank you. Have a great day.